So we haven't got long to wait now until Kenobi premieres on Disney+, and it's looking like it's going to be a fun trip back into the Star Wars universe. But with the ever-expanding list of Star Wars films, books, shows, comics, and video games that have come out since Revenge of the Sith, some people may find it tough to keep up with what's been happening in the lead up to Kenobi's new show. So I wanted to make this video as a way of laying out the state of the Star Wars universe going into Kenobi, and what the characters have been up to. Chronologically, Kenobi takes place around 10 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith, and 9 years before the start of A New Hope. For any fans of the animated Star Wars Rebels show, Kenobi takes place about 4 years before the start of Rebels' first episode. In terms of recent live action content, Kenobi takes place about a year after the events of Solo, A Star Wars Story, and about 18 years before the main events depicted in both The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. So I wouldn't expect Grogu to show up in Kenobi. It's not impossible, however. He is, after all, knocking about somewhere in the Star Wars galaxy at this point, and Disney needs to sell their merch. Sorry, Grogu. But following the events of Revenge of the Sith, what kind of a state is the galaxy in, and what's Kenobi been up to for all these years? Well, both Kenobi and the galaxy at large are pretty shaken up following the events of Order 66 and the rise of the Galactic Empire. The galaxy has gone from being governed by a troubled but still democratic Galactic Republic to now being governed by a tyrannical Sith-controlled Galactic Empire. And this empire doesn't really have any qualms about infringing upon its citizens' personal freedoms and rights. Things aren't all bad though, especially if you're a citizen residing in the thriving galactic core on planets like Coruscant, or Alderaan, but let's not mention that. And coming off the back of a protracted galactic scale war like the Clone Wars, many citizens are probably just grateful for the peace that the Empire has brought about. Grateful enough to overlook the rumours they're hearing of atrocities on some far-flung planet. Away from the galactic core, however, on planets in the Outer Rim like Tatooine, citizens are facing a much harsher life, fueled by either neglect from the Empire or outright persecution. And now the Jedi, once a source of hope for many in the galaxy, have been vilified by Empire propaganda and hunted down and executed by their clone allies during the events of Order 66. And now any Jedi who survived Order 66 are being hunted down by the secretive Imperial Inquisition, a group made up of Jedi who have strayed from the path of light to become dark side agents working for Darth Sidious, tasked with hunting down Jedi and Force-sensitive children and either turning them to the dark side or eliminating them permanently. These Inquisitors are led by an individual known as the Grand Inquisitor and overseen by Darth Vader. Reconstructed and filled with hate following his loss to Obi-Wan during their duel on Mustafar, Vader would like nothing more than to find his old master and eliminate him. Which is why, leading into the events of Kenobi, Obi-Wan has been hiding out on Tatooine, keeping a watchful eye over Vader's 10-year-old son, Luke Skywalker. As part of his attempts to keep a low profile on Tatooine, far from the prying eyes of the Empire, Obi-Wan has forgone the use of his lightsaber and renamed himself Ben Kenobi. Not the greatest of aliases, one must admit, but we make do. It's a lonely and mundane life for Kenobi on the sand dunes of Tatooine, however, with his only company being the Force ghost of his former master, Qui-Gon Jinn. As a result, Obi-Wan has occasionally been getting involved in the life of young Luke Skywalker, whether it be saving him from gangsters or providing him with parts to repair his damaged Skyhopper. This was all to the annoyance of Luke's uncle Owen Lars, who would protest against Obi-Wan being involved with Luke, as he didn't want him meeting a same fate as his father, Darth Vader. Obi-Wan and Uncle Owen also once got in a brief scuffle with the Wookiee bounty hunter, Black Chrysanthemum. But I feel like when Chrysanthemum appeared in the Book of Boba Fett, it kind of ignored his prior relationship with Boba Fett from the Star Wars comics. So whilst a lot of the events Obi-Wan went through on Tatooine in Star Wars comics are canon, live-action Star Wars media seems to disregard info and events from comics, games, and even books sometimes, where it sees fit. Anyway, that's the state of the galaxy and what Kenobi's been up to, leading up to the events of the show. But how will the events depicted over the course of the Kenobi TV series fit into the larger Star Wars series of media? Well, from the limited knowledge we have of the show so far based off of interviews and recent trailers, It seems like the story of the show may resemble quite closely some of the events that we've just discussed. And bear in mind there's not much info out there till the show airs, so this is just my guesswork and opinions. In one of the trailers was shown Obi-Wan watching over a young 10-year-old Luke Skywalker and eventually being confronted by an irate Uncle Owen, upset that Kenobi getting involved in Luke's life could potentially lead to him going down the same path as his father. Inquisitors, including the Grand Inquisitor and a new character named Reva, the third sister, are seen visiting Tatooine and a new world Daiyu in a hunt for Obi-Wan and other Jedi. We see Obi-Wan having left Tatooine for Daiyu, fighting what could be described as bounty hunters, without the use of his lightsaber, instead using blasters and his fists. And there's even the hint of a potential face-off between Vader and Kenobi. But I don't want to start predicting the plot of Kenobi, because quite frankly I've got no idea. What I do know is that the Kenobi show probably won't have that big an effect on the larger Star Wars galaxy as a whole. We know that Kenobi, Vader, the Grand Inquisitor and Luke, amongst other characters, all appear in some form of Star Wars media set years after the events of the Kenobi TV show. And the Empire is still in charge of the galaxy 9 years on. So the Kenobi show will need to find some other way of raising the stakes, whether that be via new planets or new characters that are introduced over the course of the show. But how far can this series go? We know that there's at least 9 more years of adventure for Obi-Wan to have before the events of A New Hope, including the chance for Obi-Wan to have one final duel with Darth Maul under the twin suns of Tatooine, as depicted in Star Wars Rebels. We have seen a live-action Maul recently in Solo after all. Whatever they decide to do with this series and the characters in it going forward, I'm excited for it. In spite of the chronological factors that might be limiting the show's potential to do grander narrative things in the Star Wars galaxy. As someone who grew up with the prequels and subsequent prequel memes, I'm just hyped for this show and to see Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen back as Obi-Wan and Vader. And I just hope it doesn't suck. I'm sure it'll be fine. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe and maybe even check out some of our other videos on this channel. There's a lot of lore on this channel, as you'd expect from a channel called Lore Tours, I guess. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Catch you next time.